Yo,
What's up, man? How you
Aaron,
doing?
what's up, G?
Not much, just working away. You know how it is.
Oh, yes, I do, bro. Dude, thanks for being on, man. I know you're a busy guy. And I don't know, did you have anything? Did you have this pulled up? Were you listening what I was saying, just really? Okay, cool.
Yes.
Give a little bit of context. So, dude, I want to jump right into this. I don't want to do any of the fluffy shit. Like, I think that your numbers and what you've done speaks for itself. So I want to quickly review those. And then I want to go into your mindset, what you're trying to do. You don't have to share everything, but I think I've told you this, this isn't just me playing this for the audience here, but every time we talk, I've said this to you. I love where your mind's at, where your vision's at, where you're trying to take this because of your perspective and your background. So anyway, if I got this right, you're right around $15,000 per month, which is about, $37.50 per week?
Yeah, that's what we currently have on weekly recurring.
Quick weekly recurring. Okay. Mm-hmm. So, dude, you're just doing this thing. The thing about Aaron that's funny, he doesn't say a lot in the group. I bet most of the people in Digital Landlords who the hell is this guy? I didn't even know he's in the group. Because you just do your shit. You're just working, right? So unreal, bro. And I'm not surprised. Obviously that didn't shock me, but still, hats off to you, man. So first of all, congratulations on that. That's amazing. What's crazy to me, bro, is there are people in this group that have been doing Rank and Rent. They've been in this free group since August of 2021, and we're still sitting on our ass. We're still well, should I do it? Well, I'm gonna do it next week. I'm gonna do it next year. Yeah. It's and then you're just doing it, bro. It's almost deflating sometimes because bro, you make it look so easy. So, dude, unbelievable. I want to jump into first of all, how did you hear about Rank and Rent, or what are your thoughts? What attracted you to Rank and Rent? What do you love about the business model? Because actually, backpedal. Share a little bit of your background, because I want people to understand that you're somebody who has a lot of options to do a lot of stuff, and this is what you're focusing on. So tell people a little bit about your background and what you're comfortable sharing.
Yeah, sure. So, I guess I've been in software consulting for, 10, 11 years, so a little bit over a decade. That's kind of my bread and butter. And I told you from before, I own or manage 7 companies. So really taking systems and technology and marrying those is kind of like a gift for me. So that's what I get excited about. So in all of my companies, I don't do anything crazy. I don't try to be the expert in. I got a logistics company, got a partial owner construction company, got an acquisition company, all sorts of different companies. I don't try to be an expert in everything. I just try to do what I'm really good at, apply to these different areas, and just solve problems. Right.
That's cool. Are you just in all those companies? Are you partners, and your role in those companies is, hey, I'm the guy that marries the technology, that, what you just said, that's your role in each of those companies, basically?
Yeah, pretty much. Now I will say, I think I have a knack for business in general. So if I think that I got to get in the weeds, for example, the trucking company, the logistics company, I was assisting with dispatching at one point. I got in and I started helping with brokering loads, right? I really intimately got to know the business so I could scale the business, because my business partner was an operator, and operators don't oftentimes know business. So I had to get in and understand operations to understand where I can create efficiencies and put tech behind it, right? But eventually I come back to my skill set and I let my operator do his thing, his magic, and I do mine, and everything works well. Make sense?
Totally. And I don't want to go I'm not going back to your childhood, but what's your background are you somebody, you got a Ivy League degree, or what's that? I actually don't know. I'm not trying to set you up for an answer. I don't know if you went to college or anything like that.
No, you're good. So, so I actually grew up extremely poor. At one point there was 8 of us living in a 2-bedroom rundown trailer, living off my grandparents' disability checks. And so I just knew I was never going to go back there, right? I'm first gen high school. So my mom and dad, neither of them finished high school. Let alone I'm first gen college. Got to college, got an applied mathematics degree, had 2 majors and a minor, right? And the only reason why I did all of that is because I literally didn't have a place to go back home to. So every single break, Christmas break, summer break, I just took more classes so I can get more loans and stay on campus. You know what I mean?
You're like, dude, I'll get you a grant, dog. You need a grant, I can help you out.
Yeah, no, straight up. So that's kind of the background. But also like I threw parties for a living in college. Like I was, on the football team for a little, I walked on for a little bit and tried that whole deal. Didn't succeed with walk-on life at all, but then I played semi-pro eventually as a quarterback. And so I've done a lot of different things, man. I'm kind of all over the place.
Let me ask you this, and then we can keep going with where I wanted to go. How did you break out of the mindset of like growing up like that? Because like I remember when I used to do door-to-door sales, we had this guy on my sales team, and he would always talk about like getting out of the hood, right? Like I gotta get out of the hood. And I would always be like, what are you talking about, bro? You get in the car and you drive your ass out of the hood. And it's like, he wasn't talking about physically, he's talking about mentally. Like there is a mentality of like, whatever, you sell drug, whatever he was talking about. But like when you grow up like that, you grow up with this scarcity mentality. You grow up like, that's not for us, that's for them. Like, was it people you were around? Was it because you exposed yourself to a different environment? Books you read? Like, how did you go? Because a lot of times I believe to get people from like where they're at to like being rich, it's you got to get this right, because a lot of times they that's the problem. That's what's stopping them. So how did you, I guess, like, because I would never guess that, right? Talking to you, I would never in a million years guess that's where you came from. Yeah. And I'm sure there are people on this call that like, oh, I relate to that a lot. How did you mentally get to where you're at now? Because that's the challenge right there.
So I think it's a lot of things. To be honest, a lot of it was a ton of lessons from places where you probably wouldn't think that you should learn them from. Like I've learned a lot of lessons from just bad interactions with my own family or other people. I learned really early on, really kind of in college, to be honest, that you can't continue to give when your cup's not overflowing, because you're giving from, like half a cup, so to speak. So a lot of just really hard lessons. I guess another, and this is not to like gain sentiment or anything, but I was pledging for my fraternity. I was taking 18 hours and I was driving from San Marcos to San Antonio every day to take my little brother and sister to school because they didn't have anybody to do it. So I was on like 2, 3, maybe 4 hours of sleep every single day while like doing all these other things, while being a math major, you know what I mean? And like having a job and all that other kind of stuff. So I think that a lot of my stuff was just like mentally in a sense of I have no other option. Yep. So I've got to kind of break the mold to be this character for these individuals because I don't have an option and they need somebody, right? But then above and beyond that, I always looked at like what other people are doing good or what they're doing bad. And I never wanted to do the bad and I always wanted to do the good, right? So if I can see like, again, family stuff, that there was a lot of like abuse and so forth, I just knew I would never abuse my significant other, right? If I could see that they always live paycheck to paycheck, I just knew I wasn't going to live paycheck to paycheck. You know what I mean? So a lot of things like that. So I consume myself with knowledge. I consume myself with, trying to find role models in those senses, even though I might not have direct contact with them, and then emulate whatever it is that they're doing, right? Even if in my trial and error of that, I found out whatever they said was a bunch of crap, because that's kind of how, nowadays it is. Like there's a lot of fake gurus. But, the reality is you don't know until you try it, or you don't know, unless you have maybe some first or secondhand experience from some of that stuff. So that's kind of the model and how I kind of like broke free from the chains of, lack of information, lack of finances, lack of all these different things.
You strike me as a very practical and like resourceful, but a very practical guy. Like you're the type of person that would hear one sentence of a podcast and you would go apply that for the next 3 months. Whereas a lot of people, they'll like, oh, I'm going to listen to 20 podcasts this month, and they don't do anything different, right? Like I feel like you're the opposite of that. And so everything you just told me seems like you're going back to what I was saying in the beginning. Yeah. Like, you don't need to read more books. You need to apply the knowledge that you already have and that you're already hearing from the people that are actually doing it. And that's the difference. And here we are, dude, you're crushing it.
So the funny thing about that is I did the whole like book a week thing. I did that all like 2 years ago and last year. Okay. And dude, it is exhausting. like trying to find the next book, purchasing it, reading it, or Audible, or whatever your method of, I mean, I went through speed reading stuff to like keep up, and I felt like I was failing every time I didn't finish a book in a week, right? Let alone the fact I didn't absorb like 85% of whatever it was that I was consuming. So this year specifically, I went from 52 books a year down to, I've read literally only 10 books this year. And I have felt so much better because I did the whole application concept, right? I did the years of all the massive stuff, and it was just literally, it was information overload. It was exhausting. And I never applied anything, right? And I mean, I would still get stuff done. Don't get me wrong. Like I would take maybe one thing from here or there every couple of books, but it just felt like the same content, different person almost every single time. And it was just a waste of money, waste of time. It was like a vanity metric. You know what I mean?
Totally. It is. I see the Instagram post. It's like book 3 out of 52. And it's like, let's go and like, look at your bank account. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
So, anyway, let's jump into this, bro. So what attracted you to this model, dude? Like, what was it that like, or I guess, yeah, what was it that just jumped out at you? Was it the scalability? Was it the asset-based piece of it? What was it about this business model that really spoke to you when you first discovered it?
Sure. So when I first discovered it, I was actually buying into it for passive income as a customer, right? So somebody said, hey, they've got this concept, digital real estate. Here are the projected numbers, right? And this, that, and the other. I was like, cool, this sounds good. Let me buy into this. Let me see how it goes. I got super interested when I got my onboarding stuff. I deconstructed the entire system. And this was December of last year, by the way. Early December of last year. Deconstructed the whole model and kind of rebuilt it in my own kind of naivety, really, because it wasn't like fully rebuilt at scale, but I kind of rebuilt it at scale as per my current knowledge of how DRE worked, digital real estate worked. And rank and rent, so I call it DRE. So everybody who calls it rank and rent, it's interchangeable.
It's Dre, dog. Come on. No, I know.
Yeah. So, I got really excited about it then. And a lot of what I do for enterprise and government customers had parallels with what it was that I would need to do to build that thing, DRE, right?
What excited you though? Like I felt the same way. And for me, for example, I like made this instant connection. I was like, dude, this is Rich Dad Poor Dad on the internet. And so like, that's the connection. I got super excited. Was there anything specific you remember that like really got you pumped about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's almost like limitless scalability for one. In my mind, I feel that way just because I feel like I can outrank anybody. And that's just kind of the ego in me. So limitless scalability, not being directly tied to a lot of markets, depending on, not directly tied to the economy, depending on which niches you choose. And I think a really big thing for me was the fact that your success directly depended on you providing value, not just like selling a thing. You know what I mean? So I knew that I could be successful as long as I could drive business for other businesses in a way that measurably impacted their business.
Yep. That's cool. So that was the thing. Okay. So, and by the way, for anyone that doesn't know what he's talking about, the way I look at that is he's talking about there's certain people out there where you can go as somebody who's just an investor, has cash, and they'll build out a property. They'll get a client for you and they have like a system. It's kind of like the equivalent of like, you guys have probably heard of these guys that build these Amazon stores or whatever, which there's some people that are getting the shit kicked out of them with the SEC. Have you seen some of this stuff?
Oh yeah.
There's some scams with that kind of stuff, but you probably heard about the model where it's like, oh, this guy builds an Amazon store for you. You just pay him 20 grand and it just churns out cash. Unfortunately, whenever that's the case, people get greedy. So it's kind of like the equivalent of that, the model he was talking about. That's how he first discovered it for anyone that kind of got lost there. And then being Aaron, being with his freaking alien mind, he's like, oh, I'm just going to deconstruct how they did this because this is fascinating. So this is all like a year, like this is all within a year. So a year ago, he first discovered it, then he deconstructs it and he's like, dude, this is dope. Okay. So that's what got you excited about it. Now, tell these guys like the way you're looking at it, you're not, so most people get into this and it's like, cool, I can get out of my job. Oh, I can pay my car payment. Oh, I can send my kid to soccer camp. And you're like, bro, we're going to run this thing up, dude. Like there's no one out there that's like doing this for real, for real. So like, I want you to share with them if you're as much as you're comfortable with, because I don't want you to give your secrets away or whatever, but like, how are you looking at this? Because you're looking at this from such a bigger level. And that's why I put in the title of the stream. It's like, yeah, you did 15K in 90 days, which is incredible. But like you're like, yeah, that's because that's just part of where I'm going. That's not like, oh, I made it. It's just like, you're just doing it. So
yeah,
these guys, how you're looking at this and how seriously, and this is what I think is so cool, dude. You have so many opportunities. You have such a cool network because of these different things you've done and the skill set that you have. Yet this is where you're spending a lot of your time, energy, and attention on this model, which I think speaks volumes to this model. So if you would share a little bit about how you're looking at rank and rent, or rent and rank, however we want to call it, DRE, D-R-E. Yeah, share a little bit about that.
Well, so just real quick, I don't think I answered the second piece of your other question. The reason why I was so attracted to the way you do it is because you condense the timelines. So I'm always looking at condensing timelines, whether it's information, business models, whatever. And the fact that you front face the lead generation with ads is like, not a lot of other people are doing that. And like, just, it's astounding because in previous models and almost everything else I've seen, I mean, PPC is not new, but DRE with PPC is something that was foreign to me, pay-per-click. So if I can take what is usually a 4 to 7 month time frame and condense that on average, right, and condense that to a week, and right now for almost all of my sites, I get them rented on average within 3 weeks. So if I can take and condense that and test an area and not have to wait 6 months and order all my backlinks and do all my Google My Business profile optimization, like all of the nonsense, test an area and then build it out after I find out there's interest in that area. To me, it's like, that was so exciting. It wasn't even funny, right? So that's what drew me to you first off. And obviously, your charisma and stuff like that. But to kind of get into where I'm going with this and the vision. So as you know, I have a different component of what I'm doing with DRE than I think what a lot of other people are. I can go into more detail about that probably later. But we are engaging. We
might need to do a call about that because there might be some people interested, but I just want you to share, like, because I remember the first time we talked, you're like, bro, there's no one doing it like this. And I was like, yeah, bro, you're even blowing my mind. What, like, I thought I was thinking big. I'm like Mr. Big Shot with 100K. And you're just like, no, listen to this. So just share a little bit about that.
Yeah. So we're kind of sticking true to our numbers. We wanted to do 4 the first month and then roll that into 20 and then roll that into 40 and so forth.
Four sites?
Just 4 sites the first month, but in reality, we did 10. 6 of those actually got rented in the first month. So our first month we did 23, almost 24K total. And right now I think we're sitting at, actually I can just look at the Stripe.
You're talking about the gross amount you've collected?
Yeah. I can just, give me a second.
You're also dialed in on all your stuff, which I find very inspiring because I'm over here with my yellow notepad and you got all your stuff on a sheet, dude. You should see my desk. It's fast.
So just to give you guys context, right? Like we did 10 and then we did some more. And then I've taken all of that money and I'm putting it back into process, which is going to go into the vision I'm going to talk about in just a second, right? So we've done 65K in gross volume in the last, like our very first day I got access to the training videos was September 12th.
Okay.
So
it's been about close to 100 days, but basically like really close to 9. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So, 64,920 with the net of that being about 42K. So we've made about 42K in profit now that I'm tossing all back into systems and processes.
Hey, I have a million questions. Keep going. I'm cutting you off. Keep going.
Yeah, you're good. So the vision with that, and like I was kind of showing you and Mr. Cowboy over there.
Cowboy Kyle, baby.
Yeah. The vision for that was to get to that kind of 150K a month range as fast as humanly possible in a scalable way. So we were projecting 6 months for that. At this point, with what we're doing with some private equity firms and with what we're doing internally and so forth, we're looking at being at somewhere around 2 to 250 sites under management by the end of January. So if you think about with our numbers, we don't have a single site rented for less than $2K a month right now. We have a few rented at $4K a month, most of them at $2K a month. Actually, I lied. We gave some concessions just for some December closeout stuff, and that one's at $1,500 a month. But those numbers, like I'm projecting right now, my big, hairy, audacious goal for 2023 is to do around 22 million in revenue. So 22 mil just in digital real estate plus our venture capital side, right? So like these guys where we're going in and pitching like predictable revenue generation for the scaling of their portfolio companies.
Okay. So talk, can you break that down a little bit without sharing too much? As like with the venture capital, are you like, yeah, explain that a little bit, because I know we've talked, but I want to know if you could share a little bit more, like, what do you mean by that?
Yeah. So the cool thing is like, I've got a ton of relationships with VCs and mostly through just some other business partnerships and so forth. So what we're doing is we go into VCs and we say, hey, you're, let's call it commercial landscaping, and you've got, 37 companies in your portfolio. You don't know where to go next. Like you might look at market data and trend data, and you might narrow it down to 7 states or 7 cities in these different states. But what we can do is to go through our due diligence process, which right now is so tuned in, it's not even funny. Like our due diligence is like the most important piece that we have in the entire process.
Hold up. That's such an important point. And I don't forget where we're going with this, but like, I've been saying this, and I say this in the training in Digital Landlords. I'm like, dude, if you mess that part up, everything else is hard. If you nail that part, that's the key. And so I think so many people, we've been in these other programs, these groups, and it's just like, oh, we're just going to toss up a towing site in random Assville, Ohio. And it's like, it's not making money. Listen to what he just said, guys. Getting the city and niche right is so important. And that's why everyone's like, oh, I just need to know how to run ads. No, you need to know how to pick a city and niche. You need to know how to do every single piece matters. But anyway, I just want to highlight that because I totally believe in that. And it's kind of like they say in real estate, the money's made in the buy, not in the sale, right? Same thing. The money's made in the decision-making process up front, not in the SEO on the back end, in my opinion. Right. So continue forward. I just had to take that moment to like double emphasize that, because I've been saying that for freaking months. So thank you.
Yeah, and so here's the thing, man. Like, just to kind of backtrack for 2 seconds.
Please.
Whenever I talk to you, again, I didn't want to use any of my background whatsoever, right? You're like, hey, you bought in my program. I would love for this to potentially be a use case. And I was like, perfect. Well, then I need to do your program to a T and not overlay a bunch of my other knowledge and all that kind of stuff, right? Yep. So I literally watched all your videos and I did exactly what you said to do. I'll be honest with you, a couple of the cities I picked a little bit more competitively than I should have, according to what your video trainings were. For sure. But nonetheless, like the system worked. And now I'm overlaying like other things and so forth, but not as a far shoot from the system.
And the reason why he was able to do that, guys, is because he's confident in his SEO knowledge. And that's what's cool, is like the way that I teach it is I'm like, hey, even a dummy can rank. If you check it the way I choose, then you're going to rank. But if you have SEO knowledge, it's like, yeah, you can go into more competitive, but you need to understand you're going to be paying more for ads. You're going to be doing more SEO. But no, I'm totally cool with that. And thank you for like just taking me up on that and just seeing how it went. And you killed it, dude. So thanks, bro.
Yeah, no, appreciate it. But yeah, so, kind of going forward, the private equity piece, I mean, we're talking to these guys, and when we can solve problems for them, especially around revenue generation, like ultimately you got to always frame the question of what is the problem that this person cares about? Like what keeps them up at night? And in private equity, their big thing is they don't want to acquire a company that they can't make multiples on exit, right? So they want to recap on the back end, if you guys know what that stuff means, and they want to make multiples on the back end, right? So they're going to buy a company at some fair valuation, that I guess fair in quotes. They're going to buy some company. They want to plug in their resources to scale that organization and maybe even sell it on the back end. So we're taking the guesswork out via our due diligence. of exactly where they should go next. And we can bolster their revenue for all of their existing portfolio companies if it's a good fit, right? So we take the risk out of the revenue conversation of their acquisition model. And we tell them like, hey, well, here's the next few places based on trend data, based on seasonality, based on, these factors, exactly where you could and should go. You guys go pick, right? We'll stand up some VRE ad campaigns in these areas. We'll prove to you that it works. And as soon as they see that it works, they're like, well, heck, let's go buy a company in that area or expand our footprint in that area. And now we have an operation in the next city.
Okay. So let me see if I'm gonna play this back and make sure I understand. So go to Mr. VC, Mr. freaking, let's use a good example, Mark Andreessen, Mr. Egghead, who's freaking too smart for his head and it's huge. Okay. Yeah. Go to Mark, you're like, hey bro, you have this company that you've invested in. It's this commercial landscape company. And they're sitting in their boardroom, drinking their fancy coffee going, what cities and states should we go into next? Because we got to make sure that we grow this company so that we can eventually sell it for an X multiple. And so for you going into them, it's valuable because you're essentially showing them, hey, this is based on our data. These cities are going to have a lot of business. And if you would like, we'll run a couple of these, let's call them whatever, pre-sales, right? Where you're just setting up ads and we can prove to you that leads are going to come in whatever city so that you can confidently choose to expand your office to that city. So basically you're just eliminating risk.
Exactly. That's it.
Amazing. Dude, how many people, and you guys can answer or not, but like the cool part about that is like, I'm not just like, oh, cool, I'm going to go swipe his model. But like what it does for me and why I wanted everyone to hear that is like, there are so many ways to take this business model, right? And so many times we sit here and go, oh my gosh, I'm going to go get 2 deals, 5 deals. And if I can just get to 10K, I'm going to be happy. And it's like, dude, let's start thinking about this bigger. Let's start thinking about opportunities like that. Let's start thinking about who can our business model solve problems for, whether it's VCs, whether it's maybe they're private companies, right? Whatever. I just think that's really, really fascinating how you're thinking about that. And so you're leveraging relationships you already have, going to them. And I'm guessing at this point now you already have a couple of case studies. Hey, we're working with this company, this VC firm, and you can kind of like leverage that to keep getting appointments, right?
Yeah. And VC's like a big but small world at the same time. So, VCs, and to be honest with you, I didn't really realize this until I started digging into this more this year. But a VC that has a portfolio of companies in like landscaping, they probably don't touch plumbing, but they probably know other VCs who touch plumbing. True. So it's not like it's ever in competition, right? They can just give their buddy a call and say, hey, I got this guy that did this for us. You should talk to him. And it's a pretty easy conversation.
And the only thing is, and for the one person on here, it's like, oh, I'm going to go rip off Aaron's model. Let me just prepare you. When you get into this world, you have one crack at this thing. And if you don't deliver, you are done. So I'm not telling you not to do it. I'm just trying to get you guys to think bigger and me included. And that's why I thought it was so fascinating. I'm like, dude, that's so interesting. And again, I sit here and I think a lot of people think I'm just cheerleading this thing. Dude, Rank and Rent's so good. Digital real estate's so good. And it's like just to pump up my program. No, this is the thing where I've made my money. This is how I got out of debt. This is how I built this house, how I bought my real estate. It's how I buy my cars and go on vacation. This is how I did it. So that gets me excited. But then I hear about stuff like this and I'm like, dude, this model is so sick. I don't know anything like it, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, and I'll give you another example. Just today, I closed out a deal with a roofing. Well, they wanted to do it for solar first, but a roofing company in a major metro, and they couldn't crack the nut on PPC and lead gen in their area for roofing. And I got done talking to them. I stood up, a mock campaign and told them what some of the projections were, all that good stuff, and it looked like a really good fit. And then they came back to me 3 weeks later and they said, "Hey, what about solar?" Because they did I mean, they're a really fast growing company, but they did maybe like a fifth of their revenue in the multiple 8 figures, by the way, in solar this year. And they said, hey, we want to scale that out. What do you think? Same thing, right? And we just closed a deal today for me to do their solar. The cool thing is with that one, they're going to be paying the ad spend and paying my weekly fee. So it's literally at no cost to me, right? They're going to be paying my weekly fee. And I came down, it's like $750 a week. I'm not worried about that. And I told them, it's like, look, we'll do it for the major metro, but usually I do metros at $1,000 a week. And then I do suburbs at around $500 a week. So this one major metro is going to spawn off into probably 10 sites over the course of the next, about 3 months or so, all of them at my regular rate. And they're going to be paying the ad spend, but only because I know that I can add the value, right? So I gave them a 2-month trial on it. That's going to roll into a 6-month, right? Kind of keeping it standard with the system. But that total should lead into, I mean, they're a national roofing company. They want me to, after solar, go do roofing and solar for them across 60 locations. So, that's when it gets fun.
That's another thing to this point is like, we haven't even started to touch these niches. And for those people that are listening and going, oh, Nick said not to do solar. It's the reason that I say that
it's expensive.
Is because it's competitive. And
that's
easier niches. And if you have not gotten your first deal and you're not Aaron, don't go into solar. Don't take this and go, oh, I'm going to go to solar and roofing. There's a reason I say that. It's because I'm talking in broad strokes for those of us that are brand new, that don't have a background like he does. But the point is, even though I stay away from those because, dude, I'm not an SEO. I don't want to play ball there. I want to focus on the easy stuff. And that's just the game I'm playing. There's so many niches that we haven't even touched, that we haven't even mastered. And I say this frequently. Rank and rent will work in any niche. I don't care what it is. It's just in varying degrees of difficulty of how it will work and how much you're going to get for the squeeze. Because at some price, at the right price, I will generate breast augmentation leads. But it's got to be a high price because I know what I'm competing against. Because if you're getting your breasts redone, shout out to all the breast augmentation. My wife did hers. It's been amazing for the family. Just saying. You want to get them done right? So it's competitive because everyone's searching it and all this. So anyway, I just want to clarify because some people are going to go, oh, you said not to do solar. I still say don't do solar until you get to the point where you're knocking down 15K in 90 days just for the fun of it. So anyway, dude, I could sit here and talk for hours and we're going to be having frequent conversations, but I want to save just a little bit of time for questions because I know there's going to be a few questions people are going to ask. So let me jump over there and see if anyone has any questions they want to ask. I already see a few. Okay. So let's do this really quick and then I'll let you off the hook and you can go enjoy the rest of your night. So Chunk says, what did I miss? Chunk, you missed a lot, bro. This is one I would definitely save and I would go watch this immediately. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so Jared says, "Who's we? Are you working with a team? Yeah. What does your team look like, dude? Are you willing to share that?"
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind really. So I had just from my software company, I'm borrowing assets across both now, and I will be splitting this out into its own company altogether. By the way, just from a structure perspective. But we have 23 people on the team right now, and this is all just from an infrastructure perspective. Only one onshore, the rest offshore. And primarily because we're pouring so much back into building out platforms and systems. But to run the operations, I have an ads person, there's me. I have a landing page person. And then obviously farming out stuff for, building out of websites. So
what countries do you have? Is it all Philippines?
No, it's all over. So it's 7 different countries.
How do you find your VAs, your offshore people? Is it through referral? Do you have a specific website that you use? Like I'm asking the questions everyone's thinking right now because I know the question is not like no one gives a shit about your team because it's not their company. They're asking how big does my team need to be? And okay, then where do I go get employees? So I'm just thinking the way that I know everyone's thinking. So yeah, how do you find these people?
So I'll be honest with you, it doesn't matter. The reality is the system is only as good as how good you can train them to do what it is that you're doing. So like every time, even when I was doing Nick's system verbatim, in your system, I say Nick, like I'm not talking to you. Anyway,
You're talking to everyone else about me. Yeah, I get it.
yeah. So even when I did, your system verbatim, I was documenting literally every single step. And then when those steps would change, I'd go back and make a different variation of it. So I have this stuff down to SOPs, like standard operating procedures. I've created videos and documented SOPs for everything with screenshots and everything. So now training even a VA to be almost like a web dev is easy for me because our system allows them to not have to be technical. Does that make sense?
Totally. And that's what's fascinating. Like the person that I have, you guys have probably heard me talk about her, Francesca. She's from Italy. English is her second language. She manages my entire operation, and she knew nothing about this stuff a couple of years ago. So like, and I totally agree with you. So we get so hung up in these little teeny details. It's like just what you said. It's about having those systems, the E-Myth, right? Having those systems in place. And that's so smart, dude. And you can tell that you've been doing this long enough that you knew, hey, I can either document right now or I'm going to have to come back through anyway. So I may as well do it while I'm going through it, right?
Right. Yep.
So, and also because I think I heard the number 23, he's got 23 people, but he's borrowing from his other companies, but people that are all in, it sounds like you have just a handful of people. You got the ads person, you got the website person, like you just have a handful of people, but then you have the ability to tap into some of these other, because they're probably already on salary or payroll, et cetera.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Now I will say when I usually choose folks that have some depth to their teams. That way they can train their team when we scale.
Okay. So like you'll go and find a VA that already has their own team too.
Yeah. So I mess with agencies a lot, and a lot of people avoid agencies, but I know how to vet them, and I'm quick to hire and fire. Right. So I know some people like the slogan is slow to hire, quick to fire. It's like, no, I'm quick to hire and fire because I know very quick in a conversation if you have any kind of skills, just because I've done it. And then also on top of that, as soon as I see that you're not meeting performance metrics, you're gone.
Yep. I like that. That's a different way to think about it, but it's brilliant if you really break it down. Okay. Let's do one more here. Let's see. I think we answered that question. Oh, Jared said, what are your margins? And he went over that earlier if you didn't catch it. So he's collected $64,920 since he started in the program. He's $42,000 of that is profit. So you're looking at what, a 60-ish% profit margin?
Yeah. And this is all like, I mean, I can actually show you guys. It's not, you want me to share my screen real quick?
I don't think that's necessary. I mean, dude,
okay.
The fact that you know to the dollar, you're either the world's best bullshitter or that's the number. I'm not worried about that. So no, I think people are just asking because that's a question that we get sometimes. Like, well, if you're doing the pre-sell method, well, it's going to take forever. Well, not if you sell it. The reason why you're making so much money, you have such a high profit margin, because you're selling these things for what they should be sold for, $2,000 plus per month, and your ads aren't costing you that much. So that's how you're making those profits.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, like the sales piece can be its own masterclass, but you got to go in with some posture. I get it. Like some people, this is going to put food on your table, or it's like very valuable. I mean, to me, like it would, for this to overtake and kind of be a primary for me, it's going to have to be in the six figures a month. So it's just a different situation. Like I can walk into any one of these conversations with some posture and tell these folks like, yeah, I mean, this is the value that it's bringing. I'm actually undercutting the value again, and it's still a great deal. So let's do the deal. And they're like, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I like that. And it's like you're showing them what the potential is. You're letting them know you're giving them a deal, and then you make sure to over deliver. And that's a formula for really good retention.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Joe, when you're going into heavy competition area for clients, are you almost operating as an SEO company rather than Nick's system? The answer to that, and you can shed some light on this too, but the answer is no, because you own the asset.
Yeah. So, I never operate as an SEO company first. I've only just, I didn't mean to cut you off, man, but I've only just started to take on folks who are clients as clients for their stuff, but it's always self-branded. We own the asset. If you go, I'm getting another person to rent this within like a few days. So their loss.
And that's always what I've kind of done. Any of the SEO deals that I've ever had since I started going all in on lead gen, it's always like, hey, you're an SEO client, or sorry, you're a lead gen client, and you asked me to rank your tree service website. And I'm like, cool, it's an extra $1,500 a month. And I have a partner that will do it. So I'm not touching it. So yeah, I'll take the money, but I never go in looking for the SEO deal. And one last thing, if you do have SEO deals, you're going to lose them. So make sure right now to take some of those profits and see where you can build a lead gen site, where you can build digital real estate property, so that you can make sure to anchor that client, because that's where you're going to make sure to keep your retention up. Because SEO, they will cancel. I promise. At some point, they will cancel.
Yep.
Okay. Let me do one more and I'll let you go, dude. This is good. Let's do. Here's a question that somebody asked, I think is really fascinating, and maybe you don't have this pulled up right now, but somebody said, can he show an example of his SOP? Do you have that, like, would you have it in Kajabi? Like, how do you have your SOP set up?
So I've been transforming those over to some new Chrome extensions that automatically document and take snippets while you're just recording. Once they're refined in that, I'm happy to share some.
No, I wasn't. Yeah, we don't have time for you to share. I was just asking how you're doing it so that we can.
Okay. So yeah. So right now they're all just Zoom recordings and just straight documents. So Google Docs.
So you have a Google document. It's like, okay, here's how you build a website. Here's step one, and then here's a video if you don't know how. And then so it's like, it's basically a PDF with inserted videos.
Yeah, no inserted videos there. It's a video separate that has the accompanied.
Okay, but it has a link. Does it have a link within the PDF that takes them to the video?
Yeah. And just so you know, like I do everything first in OneNote. When I'm doing my first set of documentation, it's all in OneNote.
Why OneNote?
And then Microsoft OneNote, it's just like a Microsoft tool. I think it's free, maybe, I don't know. I have it because of, my businesses, but
okay.
OneNote just allows you to have a ton of different tabs, and you can have different pages with those tabs and organize. So I have like clients in OneNote for notes. And anyway, OneNote's great. You can use whatever tool you want, but my thing is, as soon as you're about to hand it off to somebody, take it from almost like your notes, which is my OneNote, to something more formal, maybe with a table of contents and, look a little bit better than just like scribbles. And then let them use it and then refine it, because I guarantee you, they're going to have things that need to be updated because you have knowledge that you think they should have. So it's a cycle. It's for sure. Like you're going to go through probably 2 or 3 cycles of an SOP before you get with the final product.
I love it. Makes sense to me. I think my biggest takeaway, man, and dude, appreciate your time, but my biggest takeaway from this entire call is not necessarily, there was a lot of nuggets. Like I even have a couple notes I wrote down right here, just as you were talking, but it's not necessarily the words that you said, or like, oh, I'm going to go do VC. Like that's not the stuff I took away. But for me, the takeaway is like, start thinking bigger, right? Start looking at this. And I think I love when I get comments on YouTube, and like I just saw one today and somebody's like, yeah, this business model is saturated. I'm like, motherfucker, what are you doing? Like, bro, I love saying this. Go ask 10 people right now, do you know what rank and rent is? All 10 of them will say no, most likely. Right. And then you're going to go and you're going to say, well, let me tell you what it is. And you're going to say, you build micro websites on a web builder if you want, you rank them, you rent them, the profit's 90% plus once you get them ranked, et cetera, et cetera. They're going to go, holy shit, that's a genius model. Every one of them. Tell me how this business model, those two things, it's not like teed up to just blow up. Like, anyway, so anyway, guys, we got to start thinking bigger, man. This is an opportunity, and I've been saying this. I've got my YouTube show. It's Making Hay with Digital Real Estate. Like, we are in this window where we have not been found out, man. Like, I keep thinking, like, dude, somebody's gonna find us out. Like, this can't be real. These margins can't be real. This is too good. And yet the money keeps coming. And I say that like facetiously, because obviously we know it's legit, it's above board, but it's such a good business model. I'm always like, why would you do drop shipping? Why would you do any of this other shit? Especially build websites and do SEO. And why wouldn't you just go all in on this model? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. I will say also just on the saturation point, there are so many folks who have PPC agencies doing their stuff for them that when I come in and I'm like, oh yeah, like I'm standing up everything I do, you don't pay for. That's kind of how like I pitch some of this is like, I'm doing all the marketing for you. I just come to your doorstep when I got jobs. And they're like, holy crap, can you do that for my stuff too?
that's cool.
If you really understand what it is that we're doing, you'll start to see like you solve so many problems for business owners. It's not even funny. So if you take like and stop just leading towards 250 a week, 500 a week, 1,000 a month, like I need this deal, and start leaning towards how are you actually solving these problems? It's different. And people will like, they're pleasantly surprised by how different this is, and they will do business with you.
Amazing way to end. And that is such a good point, because the best problem solvers are the ones that make the most money. And if we start looking at this as how we're solving other people's problems and stop looking at it as just this little box that we check these little boxes and we got a deal, and we look at ourselves as problem solvers that are solving problems for these businesses, we're going to approach this differently. Our language is going to be different. Our confidence is going to be different. And they're going to sense that difference, because every Joe, Dick, and Harry, whatever they say, is out there doing what Aaron just said as the bad example. And the people like Aaron that are looking at this, like, how can I solve the problem for the VC? How can I solve the problem for Bob, the tree guy? Those people feel that is a difference. And that is why people are attracted to that. So, bro, we got to end there. That is such a good way to end. Thank you for your time, man. I'm going to text you because we got some stuff to talk about. And everyone, thank you for being on. Merry Christmas. And I will see you next week on our last call before the new year. Thanks, bro.
All right. Thanks. See you.